Hey, what's going on, guys? Today we are going to be responding to a video saying Spider-Man PS4 is overrated. I disagree with this, and I don't think a lot of his points hold up very well. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Mary Jane levels and Miles Morales levels are absolutely abysmal and so ass. Negative fun. They're so boring and pointless from a gameplay perspective and a story perspective. Like, dude, why the hell are Miles and Mary Jane so set on risking their lives for such little things? Like getting good photos for a freaking report?
Assuming you're talking about the mission where MJ sneaks into Fisk's museum under a fake name, she didn't think she was in any real danger. She didn't know the demons were there. Actually, at this point in the story, she didn't even know the demons existed. And she thought the only person there was just the lady who manages all of Fisk's things. So she wasn't, as far as she knew, putting herself in life-threatening danger.
Also, why the hell did you include these mobile game ass puzzles? Like, if I wanted to play Connect the Wires, I would be playing that on the App Store, alright? Do not include mobile games in your AAA game, guys.
Sure, the mini games aren't the most engaging things in the world, but I don't really see the issue with them. They're mini games, and even when they are required to do in the story, it makes sense as to why. And they barely appear throughout this main story at all.
And then we go to the enemy design, which feels pretty redundant. There is a reason why the combat works, and that's because of the different enemies that do different things, but some of these guys are so annoying. Look, man, I love the chess combat systems, but dude, sometimes these enemies are just programmed to not get hit, like this sword guy. This is the worst guy. Also, dude, the gun guys are such a pain in the ass. Like, I guess they keep you on the move, but they're so annoying that I just go straight for them every time.
Sure, the sword enemies can be a little annoying to try to take out, but I really don't see the problem with the gun guys. Sure, they shoot at you a lot, but that also helps you build up your focus meter, in which you can use that to heal, use takedowns, etc. So I don't really see why it's a big problem for the gun guys, but to each their own, I guess.
And that's how I end up playing this game, just killing everything in order of how annoying they are. And some of these guys just have way too much health, on hard difficulty, by the way. The boss fights are actually kind of decent. Some are definitely worse than others, but they're mostly fine. They're definitely not the best part of the game because most of the time they only have one weakness, so sometimes I sighed when there was a boss, but they don't really hurt the game. And then we get to probably the biggest problem in this game, the level design. For about 80% of the time, the game throws you into an arena, and you just have to clear the room. That's it. There's also a severe lack of visual variety, with most of the levels just being in the city or inside some building. I get that you can't do much because Spider-Man is supposed to stay in the neighborhood, but come on, they could have done better.
Sure, some bosses only have one weakness, like the Rhino or even Scorpion, but they are typically paired up together to keep gameplay from getting too repetitive. And the boss you showed me you were talking about this was Doc Ock, who doesn't have one weakness. You can open him up by throwing debris at him or webbing him up. So, yeah. As for your point about the level design, sure, they could have probably been a little more creative, but as you said, they are restrained by, well, the game taking place in New York. There's only so much you can do with that. But I don't think what we got was bad either.
I remember I was like 80% into the game at one point, and I realized that there was only two levels that I truly enjoyed. One where you have to go from building to building in a construction site, and the best level in the game, the prison break. Which, again, I'll talk about this more later, but the story is stuck in this weird place between trying to be realistic and serious, but also being cartoony and ridiculous.
I'm not entirely sure what he means by the story switching from serious to goofy, considering it maintains a pretty serious tone throughout the entire game. Sure, there are goofy moments, but that doesn't make the story itself goofy.
But unfortunately, this gets old when you realize the prisoners are all the same as any other enemy faction, which is it. This game just feels pretty samey. Like, where's all the variety from Shattered Dimensions? That game takes you through so many locations. And yes, this is not a multiverse game, but they should have made more handcrafted levels instead of just throwing you in arenas with this many enemies.
Sure, they could have been a little more variety in this game, but why are we comparing it to Shattered Dimensions? Like you said, this isn't a multiverse game. Thus, the opportunity for more unique, I guess, environments like Shattered Dimensions has is a lot smaller. So, I don't really get why you compared it to that. Also, what do you mean by not handcrafted levels? Do you think they auto-generated all the levels in this game or something?
Only good thing about this open world is the fact that you can swing around as Spider-Man. The side quest objectives are stupid. I'm not a Spider-Man fanboy, guys. I will not get excited to help some guy catch pigeons just because that's what friendly neighborhood Spider-Man would do.
Well, you're in luck because these side quests are, well, side quests. They're optional. And if you don't want to do like help out around the city like, Spider-Man would, why are you playing a Spider-Man game at that point, dude? What?
Catch that pigeon.
Okay.
If it's not fun, then why bother? But yeah, man, this game has really cool suits to unlock so you can swing around with them. This game shows you if you actually like Spider-Man suits, and I gotta say, every single MCU Spider-Man suit sucks! Thank you. So, alright guys, now we go to the story, which of course, everyone loves. They describe it as perfect Spider-Man movie, a love letter to Spider-Man, and good story. This is obviously super beloved. So what do I think? It's meh. The first hour of this game made this story feel like one of those generic stories you see in like movie games. It's hard to explain, but kind of like God of War 1 to 3 stories with no depth. But that's what it felt like. There are some better parts where the story feels more natural, but it's stuck in this weird place between natural and inoffensive.
How exactly does the story not have any depth? You have all this stuff going on with Peter, Aunt May, Otto's manipulation of Peter throughout the entire game, and all the other stuff revolving around MJ and Peter's relationship and all of that. How doesn't it have depth for the first part of the story again?
I never really bought into Peter's relationships with people like Doc Ock or Miles, but they weren't bad, just kind of shallow.
What didn't you buy about them, and how are they shallow?
The ending of this game is super emotional, but I honestly didn't get affected at all. Sometimes I really only appreciate the moments in the context of Spider-Man as an icon, and not specifically in this game. Like the Stan Lee cameo, which is one of the best I've ever seen. I do like the acting, and there are some memorable moments that kept me interested, but yeah, man, not really a fan of the writing, and even the plot. The whole Mr. Negative and his League of Demons felt so generic and boring. Like, is this seriously what we're tackling in the perfect Spider-Man movie?
How is it generic considering the first part of the story with the demons and whatnot is covering the downfall of Martin Lee? We see how much he's conflicted about what he's doing, but he ultimately decides to go with it because the darkness in him is taking over. How is that generic?
Pretty much the first 2/3 of this game were pretty boring and generic, and I really only had an interest in the last third, where Doc Ock turns evil. Which, bruh, how are you gonna have Doc Ock, probably one of the most iconic villains of all time, be the twist villain? Like, dude, the only time I was really surprised by a villain this iconic being evil was in Spider-Man No Way Home with Green Goblin. They introduced Norman as being scared of the Green Goblin and have him be more fragile. But the reason he works is because they imply a role for him in the story, which in this game, it's basically just Doc Ock's origin story.
Sure, anyone could see the twist coming from a mile away, but that's why the writers smartly decided to focus on Peter and Otto's relationship and the struggles Otto had to go through because of Norman. It's effective for making Otto's downfall all the more tragic, even if it was predictable.
So overall, I don't think the story is that good. I think it's a little above average. Like, overall positive on the story. But guys, I've kind of backed myself into a corner here by bringing up the writing. People think this game has good writing, and not just good writing, but really good writing. And now I'm forced to explain why this game doesn't have good writing, so yeah, I'll do my best, guys. So before I dive into this, I want to bring up a good version of growing a character even after his origin. Because look, man, I understand that Peter has already learned responsibility, but telling a story where your main character has no interesting arc is not going to work, because what does Peter even learn in this game?
Peter's arc in this game is largely centered around him learning that he needs to work with allies and to trust them, because even though he's Spider-Man and has superpowers, he's still just one man and can't do everything himself. That's what he learns in this game.
That Doc Ock betrayed him? No, man. An example of good stories where the hero has had his origin is The Batman. This is an incredible movie with great characterization and arcs. Even in Spider-Man 2, every sequel needs a reason for existing, right? And I don't think that we really needed to see Spider-Man just take down Martin Lee and Doc Ock.
Then it's a good thing that the story isn't just about Spider-Man beating up Martin Lee and Doc Ock.
Like, yes, the fact that Aunt May died and Doc Ock turned evil are very significant, but there really is no reason for why that had to happen because we don't really know what this means to Peter.
This story had to happen because of the suffering Norman put Otto and Martin Lee through. If it wasn't for Norman, none of this would have had to happen. He's the reason that all of the stuff in the game happened. And Martin means something to Peter because Peter believed in his mission at Feast, and Otto was someone he looked up to and idolized and was everything Peter wanted to be.
This game starts off when Peter has been Spider-Man for 8 years, but you still have to introduce the character. Spider-Man in this game feels like a generic ensemble of all different movies, comics, and TV shows. And while you might find some references, it doesn't really work for an engaging character.
Peter does have an introduction in the game. The clip you were just playing about Peter in his apartment is his introduction. They are introducing you to his character through pure visual storytelling. It shows us how behind Peter is on his rent and how out of balance his life is. That's his introduction.
So back to Batman, he had to be introduced as a character, but it also couldn't be his origin story. And yet the movie still effectively characterizes him and gives him an engaging arc.
Spider-Man PS4 does the same for Peter.
I guess I just feel like this game tried to appeal to too many people and it ended up feeling just generic. Some of my favorite moments in this game are just cool Spider-Man moments that I feel could have happened to any Spider-Man. The Stan Lee cameo was incredible, but that's not because of this game. So yeah, the story itself has characters with personality, but no depth. It can also be a drag sometimes. The game has a lot of narration and exposition, and it doesn't really show you a lot of the character.
Considering you didn't think Peter had a character introduction in this game, something tells me that a lot of the visual storytelling flew over your head.
There's this good example that comes to mind where Peter gets stung by Scorpion and he starts having visions of Doc Ock and he's just super guilty about not being able to help him. But at the same time, it doesn't really seem like he ever tried.
Peter did try to help him. It's just that Otto manipulates him throughout almost the entire game, so any concerns that Peter had brought up, Otto played it off like he agreed when he really didn't. We see this in the game.
Peter says that Doc Ock was his idol, but he never really shows it. In fact, the only thing he does is trust him, which is fine, I guess. But even then, it seems like Peter trusts in the technology more than Doc Ock himself.
The same Peter who says that the arms could be affecting Otto's brain, that's the same Peter that apparently trusts the technology more than he trusts Otto? Are you sure about that?
The game just spends too long spelling it out for us rather than just showing us. But yeah, guys, overall, this game is above average. It's definitely not a must-play and probably not even the best Spider-Man game, but it was overall positive. Even if I did have a lot of problems with the game, you can tell that a lot of effort went into making this, and there are a lot of cool things. I give this game a 6 out of 10.
I think the game is probably more around a 8.5 to 9 out of 10, but I do appreciate that you tried to end off the video on a more positive note. And speaking of ending videos, I'm ending mine here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, do not go sending any hate to anyone I ever respond to, including this guy. So, with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.